Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
It is a great honor to participate in this debate with my esteemed colleague, Mr. Meeks of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and with a great patriot such as Mr. James of Michigan. I want to welcome the American people to the second part in a legislative series we are conducting about all of the places on the planet Earth where Congress still believes that 9/11 justifies current U.S. troop presence in 2023. And the first in that series was Syria. And I came to this floor, only got about 103 votes, but I made the argument that our troops were essentially sitting ducks, guarding oil extraction operations where their presence was known, where their location was easily identifiable, and I called for a withdrawal. That withdrawal was defeated, and then precisely what I predicted, more U.S. casualties from Iranian drones. That's what happened, exactly what I said would occur, and it is with no joy I say that, and I know all of us would take any policy position we could to reduce U.S. casualties, and I think this debate will present an excellent opportunity to reflect on Somalia in that light. There are currently 900 U.S. troops in Somalia, give or take, and this resolution would bring them home. Somalia is a country of 17 million, tortured at times by al-Shabaab, a group of roughly 7,000 hardened fighters and even more sympathizers. But to believe any of the arguments, just logically, that my colleagues are making, you have to believe that 900 U.S. troops is what is going to save a country of 17 million from a hardened group of 7,000. I think that strains not only logic, but our understanding of the history of Somalia, a country that has oscillated between failed state and just absolute coup revolution over and over again, civil war, sectarian violence. The future of Somalia must be determined by Somalia. And to the extent that foreign influences could be helpful, I would argue that the African Union is far better positioned to build a stronger sense of national identity and national unity among clans that have been warring in Somalia for generations than U.S. troops. I have yet to see the evidence that U.S. troops are the essential element to fusing relationships among warring African warlords, clans, and tribes. Now, the Brits controlled Somalia, and in nearly half the century since, we have seen a constant state of despair. So what is the end state for our military presence in Somalia? Are we going to be the block captain of Mogadishu, presumably forever, until we beat the last sympathy for al-Shabaab out of the last heart of the last Somali? That was the argument with Syria and ISIS. We have to stay in Syria because there's still people who believe the ISIS ideology. Mr. Speaker, I would argue that the U.S. military is not an effective capability to deploy to defeat an ideology. We are not able to permanently stabilize countries by having a presence that can at times be a very basis for the terrorism recruitment that we seem to work against. There is also an opportunity cost to being in Somalia that I would like to share with the body. I represent constituents who are part of these missions, these train, equip, and advise missions throughout Africa. And increasingly, they're having to enter the Indo-PACOM to get analysis and research on the best communication skills and tactical skills and strategic skills that would be necessary if conflict were to erupt in the Indo-PACOM theater. And what I have observed firsthand is that at times, some of our best and brightest are having to go split squad, where some are wandering about Africa on train and equip missions, and then there's less of a focused capability in places where I think America must hold the high ground to ensure the enduring success of our nation. My colleague from the other side of the aisle made mention of the training that America does in Africa and how critical it is. The problem is, far too often we are training the next generation of coup leaders. We haven't figured that out yet. I got to ask questions of the leader of AFRICOM why so many people who are leading coups in Africa were trained by Americans, he was unable to identify even current leaders of African countries, that they were trained by Americans or that they participated in coups. I would now seek unanimous consent, Mr. Speaker, to enter into the record a piece from The Intercept. AFRICOM Chief to Congress, we share core values with coup leaders.
Without objection.
And in this piece, it highlights 5 countries, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Mali, Mauritania, and Gambia, where the very people who led the coups were the people that had received this training from the United States. I would note that any comparison here to Afghanistan is sorely misplaced. This legislation provides 1 year to remove 900 people. That is far different than unwinding the double helix that was our multi-decade engagement with Afghanistan. I agree with the sentiment that my colleague, Mr. James, stated, that our friends must trust us and our enemies must fear us. But what I have observed after 20 years of American war in the Middle East, in North Africa, is that our enemies often mock us when we try to be the world's policeman and the world's piggy bank. That is not the goal, it should be the goal of our country. We should not be engaged in nation building in Somalia, in the Middle East, or elsewhere. These 900 U.S. troops have no end state. They are engaging in largely police force operations. I suggest they should come home, and a vote for this resolution would do that. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the